Hello, everybody. Thank you again for joining me on Handouts. I am the host, Karen Moore, business strategist and founder of K Moore Group Consulting. And I have a wonderful guest here with me today on Handouts, Miss Jean Johnson, owner of Healing HMS Therapy. As you know, each time I do one of these series, I love to invite small business owners and mid-sized business owners to come and talk and share their tips, their advice, and suggestions for both aspiring and existing business owners as you journey along this entrepreneurship endeavor. So I am going to get started and let John introduce herself, and then we'll dive into what it's like to own a therapy business.
Um, Thank you, Karen, for having me. Yes, my name is Jean Johnson. I am born and raised in New Orleans, moved out here after Hurricane Katrina, got into psychology, and now I'm, almost, I think, yeah, almost 19 years later of being in Maryland. I started my own private practice. It's a faith based, all inclusive practice where we offer both remote and virtual I'm sorry, in person and virtual therapy, um effective therapy. So yes, thank you for having me.
Oh, absolutely. And for my listeners, I am actually a client in Miss Johnson's practice. She isn't my direct therapist, but I want to say I would say during the pandemic, right? 2021, we were still in the pandemic. I felt the need to get some more mental support and be able to have tips and techniques for maintaining overall wellness. And I am so glad I found her just through basic Google review, Google searching, and found a wonderful practice. So I love it. But I built up the courage to reach out and ask her to come and talk with me on handouts because I thought it would be valuable for listeners, both those that are in psychology, in this field of psychology, but then people in general could grab some advice and tips on managing their business and starting a business. So that's what I hope to uncover today. Some knowledge from those who've been there, done that, and can share their expertise.
Yes.
Yes. So I'd like to start off just by understanding, like, why did you want to start your own business? I'm sure you were obviously a therapist before, but what made you want to shift to become an entrepreneur?
um two things actually. One, I was wanting to further my education to go get my doctorate. And I tried many different jobs. I thought working in a hospital overnight will allow me to do that. And I actually came across doctorate students that did exactly what I thought I would be able to do, and it really didn't work. I was like, nah. And then, and so starting my own private practice allowed me to have the flexibility to do both. But the biggest reason, the biggest push was I worked in so many different places at the same time. Not, I kept getting fired, but I just worked. I had multiple jobs because it's very expensive living in this county,
Mhm.
and I saw just a lot of not so good practices. And so once I realized, like, they need to be doing this, no, they need to be doing that. And I always had a lot of leadership positions at the
Yeah.
different places that I worked. I was really close to the leadership. I was like, oh no, I need to start my own. So I believe that was the biggest push, just being in so many environments that just wasn't run the most effective and efficient way. And it's like, okay, I think it's now time for me to start my own and just want to just do a better job. So that was the biggest push.
Okay, yeah, wanting to make a difference in your field, that is always a good motivating reason to want to get out there and see things done more efficiently, see things done more effectively. I'm
Yeah.
going to apologize if you could hear the lawnmower. Actually, have my grass with a service, my lawn take care of with a service provider. He doesn't tell me what day he's coming. He just shows
Okay.
up and then I pay him. So
Okay. No
I
problem.
apologize. I wish I had nice filtering software. I'll reach out to StreamYard to see if they have noise counseling features that we could add on to the service, but they should be in the back shortly. So I apologize
Okay.
for that.
Yeah, you good.
But yeah, and then flexibility. You talked about the flexibility, having more autonomy. That is certainly one of the reasons why I'd like to step out and start my own, like take advantage of an opportunity to gain more autonomy over our lives.
Hmm.
Always a good reason to go into business.
Hmm.
Um, so I would imagine that like the therapists that are in your practice, right? They're under you. They're learning how to, service clients, and then being us, us. It sounds like you run a pretty intimate practice, so they probably are seeing the ins and out of what it means to run a practice.
Hmm.
But oftentimes, people may see things from one perspective, right? They're not on the back end handling the
Hmm.
management of it, the administrative side. So they truly don't know what it takes to run a business. Um, so I'd like to ask, and if you could share, one key thing that people should keep top of mind if they're going to start their own therapy business.
Well, first God, because that's the only reason why my
Amen.
practice is running. And again, I
Amen.
know everybody doesn't ascribe to God, or and I'm all about inclusivity and diversity. So for those who aren't connected to God, just making sure that your intentions for doing your business is good. And I don't think it should be all about the money, though money is needed. But I found just in my just life, I went from I went from volunteer to employee to contractor to now business owner. And money has never been the driving force. And I would say that money shouldn't be the driving force when you're working with people.
Oh yeah.
So when you're working with people in the intimate setting like I am, as a private practice, money should not be the driving force, because it could definitely put you in some precarious situations, and people can sense that when the force is money. But the driving force, I believe, should be your gifts and talents and your strengths. Um, and let that be the thing that you keep in mind, and you build off of that, or you resource when there is an area that you are, that is not an area that you're good in. But money is definitely not the driving force for me. Again, when I'm working with people, I'm allowing my gifts, my talents, my strengths to be the thing um that helps me to keep in mind, why am I doing this? I'm doing this because I want to provide effective services that's going to change people. And I'm utilizing my talents, my giftings, my strengths, and I'm also letting that help me hire people. Like, I don't do couples therapy, but all my clinicians do couples therapy, because
Oh, I like that.
that's just not something that I do well. And so again, I'm thinking about my strengths, and then the areas that I'm not so good in, that's what I'm going out for, because I look at the relationships with my staff as reciprocal. Yes, they get paid,
Right.
pouring into them, but they're also pouring into me as well. The things that I may not be so good in. So hopefully that answered the question.
That definitely answers the question, but that
Okay.
is perfect advice. Like I said, I love to study the
Mhm.
business world and the topics. It's at the top of my Google feed. I really dive in deep, and I'm curious about business management. Have a degree in it, but I feel like I'm a lifelong learner of it. And oftentimes you'll see people give advice to aspiring entrepreneurs around finding your passion and doing something you're passionate about. But passion doesn't necessarily equal strength. Passion doesn't necessarily equal know-how. So I love that you gave advice of instead focusing on your strengths and centering what you do around those core strengths, because you can find yourself trying to diversify too quickly without really fully analyzing, is this your area of expertise? Do you have, rather natural strengths or learned strengths here? So I'm passionate about crafting. Love it. But I
Mhm.
would probably rank top of the search results for Pinterest fails. I am horrible at I'm just not crafty, but you can't stop me from buying glitter and rhinestones and glue and just trying my little best to most of my stuff comes up looking like preschool kindergarten art. But I'm passionate about it. I love it. I'd never turn that into a business.
Mhm.
I wouldn't do that just because I'm passionate about something and love to go spend money at hobby stores and stuff. So it's,
Yeah.
I think that what you hit on is definitely essential for business
Mhm,
owners to remember that passion doesn't necessarily equal strengths,
mhm,
and also the value of partnering, right?
mhm,
Finding
mhm.
partners in the same line of work that do have those strengths, and then complementing one another, whether
Yeah.
you're learning from them and just, adding the value of what they bring to your practice. I love that. Business partnerships are so
Mhm.
important. Stay
Very,
in your
very,
lane.
very.
Yes, stay in your lane and find the partners who are in different lanes. I
Yeah.
love that. I love that. So I apologize. You probably already said it, and I'm taking little notes here and there. But how long did you say you had been in practice?
I started my practice December of 2020. So December will be 4 years.
Oh, awesome. Awesome.
Yeah, the time goes by so fast.
Yes. When you first started out, did you have like a go-to source you were using to kind of help shape and navigate your business practice? Because like I said, you've been doing therapy for a while, so
Yes.
you've been out of the supervisory phase, under out of your own supervisory phase where you will be a supervisor for a long time. But as you
Mhm.
stepped into business, what became like a go-to source to kind of help guide the decisions you needed to make as you establish your business that first year or so?
Yeah, I love this question because even those out there who want to start their business, I had indirect and direct sources. So when I say the indirect sources, I'm talking about the positions I was in this, because again, I've been in the helping field probably since I moved out here in 2005. I was working at a social services branch doing grant funded programs, working in low income communities, and doing a lot of preventive programming
Yeah.
while I was in school and undergrad. And so I gleaned those indirect resources, was just learning, because again, I'm a observer and seeing how they do things that worked, and then the things that didn't work. And then as I grew in my education and in my leadership, and just grew in the field naturally and being closer. At one point, I was under a CEO in a hospital, directly under a CEO in a hospital. I was a director in a hospital. I was also an assistant director in a substance abuse clinic. I worked right under the owner, and then I was the director of a private practice working right under the owner.
Mm.
And just looking and seeing how they doing things, just observing, taking in. I always tell people I don't run behind money, I run behind experience.
Oh, wow.
Not knowing that I was shaping myself for my own practice. Because when I finished my master's in 2011, the first thing my dad said was, "You want to go start your business?" And I was like, "Absolutely not. I don't want to do that. I just want to help people." And
Yeah.
again, and here I am, less than 10 years later, I was starting my own. So that indirect, seeing how people move, seeing what worked with their movement and seeing what didn't work, that was the indirect go to. Now, the direct go to, I had one particular person that I had known at that time. She had her private practice for about 6 years. And I reached out to her and just asked those three people that I said that I worked under, who were like the CEO and the owners.
Yeah.
I thought that I would be able to go to them for help,
Mm.
but they all turned me away in their own way,
Yeah.
which was very shocking. But then here is this young lady that she and I worked in the hospital together, and something just told me to reach out to her, and I was willing to pay her if she gave me an hour or two of her time. And she was like, "Absolutely not. Don't pay me. Let's do a Zoom. Ask me any questions you have." And then I also joined a network.
Mhm.
They actually found me, but there was a network, a counseling network that I joined. Everybody was way ahead of me in the field, and so I would glean from their practices as well. So again, humbling myself, seeing people who's doing it right, and put myself out there and just asking for some support and help. And then God, of course, first and foremost.
Yes, yes, absolutely. Yep, tuning in to that inner connection with the Holy Spirit and
Yep.
listening for direction is essential because that's going to be aligned to your natural strengths. Like it's not going to direct you to do something that's just not within your toolbox.
Right.
So
Right.
definitely believe that. But
Hmm.
yeah, I love that to have in establishing a network for yourself. And if you don't have one, by reaching out to profession networks within your profession. And I'm
Hmm.
sure there's probably one for just about every profession.
Yep. Yep.
Yes, but not going at it alone, I think is so important for people
Hmm.
to remember.
Yep.
Getting knowledge from someone who's already walked the path and can connect you to just valuable information and telling you
Hmm.
what they've learned. I love
Right.
that.
Yep.
Yes. In starting out, so it sounds like you said, you've had advice and guidance from someone who's already in the field, learning from your peers in a professional network. Sure, people love to say within the first few years, lots of businesses fail. 50% of businesses fail within those first few years. So that obviously implies it comes with this challenges.
Hmm.
Can you share maybe just one challenge that you faced in those first, in the startup years, and how you navigated that challenge?
So the biggest challenge, and I had to think about this question. People, people. When you are a business owner, you taking everything, the compliments, the disgruntledness, the unhealthy approaches, the healthy approaches, and you have to handle it all. And though I've worked in many settings with people, it wasn't on the buck stops with me. I
Oh,
have to resolve this.
yes.
And
Now it's different.
so I would just say people, and not just the clients, because again, that's why I did my practice for the clients. So I do have a grace, mercy, and love for the clients. I think with the management of people, and again, I've been a supervisor, director of
Right.
people for a while, but again, the buck stops with me. I'm the one that's creating these policies. I can always blame the owner. Hey, this is
Yeah.
what they say, but I'm the owner now. And so one of the things I told one of my clinicians, I said, I do not like telling grown people what to do. And so and so that was a growing moment for me. Even though it was challenging, it still grew me. And it just allowed me and how I navigated through it. Again, through my spirituality, we are all called to love. And
Mm,
I looked at those
yes.
moments where I may have been annoyed or frustrated. I'm like, okay, here is the opportunity. I can express my love to God through people, because that's how we express our love to God. That's the true expression of love to God, is through how we treat people. And
Absolutely.
so anytime any of my staff either frustrate, annoys, I'm like, okay, let me remind myself of what love is. Love is patient, love is
Mhm.
kind, love is long suffering, love does no account of wrong. So I'm thinking of that as I'm approaching them with God in mind. And so it actually grew me. This
Right.
challenge that I faced has grown
Right.
me closer to God. And so every clinician at my practice can't ever say that they haven't, that I've yelled, screamed, disrespected. Even one of my clinicians was like, I'm okay with making you upset because you're a nice man. And so,
Oh my goodness.
and I took it as, some people would take that as like a what, but I knew where she was coming from. She was like, even though I disappoint and you are disappointed in some of the choices I make, as I'm growing as a clinician, you do it in love.
Right.
And so that was probably, again, at the beginning, the biggest challenge was how to navigate through the thing that I hate doing the most, which is telling grown people what to do. How
Yeah.
can I do that in a way that is going to be honoring to God? And so, yeah,
Mm.
so that was the biggest challenge.
That is powerful. And I definitely think anybody can relate to that. I would imagine working with people in any capacity where you're, it's one thing to deal with people on a one off basis, like a transactional business, right?
Mhm.
I'll provide this service. They may come back, they may not. Don't have to, have a sustaining relationship with them. But I imagine in a business where you are having a sustaining relationship with people, learning how to treat people well and being able to maintain that is a challenge. I literally just read this story. Oh, I wish I could remember the name of the business. A gentleman started an accelerator, and
Mm.
he treated he ended up frauding people
Oh.
in the accelerator. The startups did not get the investment they were looking for. He filed bankruptcy, but a week before he fired the whole board, and then ended up being the primary
Mhm.
shareholder. So at the end of this whole ordeal, he's going to walk away with money. But he treated his employees so poorly,
Mhm.
did like test of loyalty, was just harsh to them in business meetings, just an all around awful person. So I think maybe a good thing that that came to an end for
Right.
the employee's sake. But it's interesting that people will let power and position, what we commonly say, go to their heads, right? And
Mhm.
forget that you are treating humans at the end of the day, right? Whether they are your subordinates or not, there's value in treating people kindly. There's value in reflecting, as we say, the love of God to people,
Mhm.
because that has returns that beyond beyond where we had definitely returns on that
Yes.
investment, both here and then as we believe in the life beyond. But
Mhm.
I love that. Like I would imagine that's a challenge anyone would encounter. And the takeaway I think about for that is just to remember to reflect love to people.
Mhm.
That
Yeah.
is so powerful. But one of my most interesting questions, because I think it's been the running theme since COVID, right? Is wellness and self
Mhm.
care, work life balance, and as you know, because the pandemic has opened up the opportunity for even private employers to allow employees to work from home, so they can maintain more of that work life balance. Balance is so essential, not only for employees but especially for business owners.
Mhm.
I mean, finding you'll hear articles where people say you got to be able to work 80 hours a week. You have to be able to work, you sacrifice so much to
Mhm.
own a business and run a business and burn themselves out. And I
Mhm.
imagine many people will find themselves at your doorstep if they operate that way.
Right.
So I would love to hear you share just how do you maintain balance, it- primarily between managing people, which I've been a manager in the past, and it took up so much of my time and the day to day that can turn into a full time job in and of itself. Um,
Mhm.
we don't like telling grown people what to do, but at the end of the day, you have to. You have
Mhm.
policies you want them to abide by. Management best practices you want them to abide by. But how
Right.
do you find that balance between managing others and then just being that business owner in general?
Ooh, God gonna be my answer for everything, by the way. But with the help of God, um, it's about perspective for me. Just like I told you, the perspective. Oh, I hate telling people what to do. The other perspective is, oh, I'm given an opportunity to exercise. One of the greatest things is love, and patience in the area that I know I need to grow in. And so anytime something happens where I'm like, oh, I got to tell this person this again, like,
Mm.
no, no, no. This is how your patience is going to be exercised. So I make sure that I really try to keep the most positive, God aligned perspective when I do something, because it takes the pressure off of me knowing that I'm not doing this by myself. I, again, very spiritual, like, God, this is my ministry. This isn't just a job for me. This is my ministry. This is what God has wrote in my purpose to do this. And so, because He is giving me the tools to do this, I know I'm not doing this alone. So I'm in constant prayer, especially when I'm annoyed. Like, okay, God, I'm gonna need your help. I need your help in every area, but guide me on how to do this. So that kind of alleviates the pressure that just naturally comes with being a business owner, a supervisor. I'm a student in a doctorate program, about to get
Oh,
into my
wow.
fourth year,
Oh, hey,
working on
awesome.
dissertation. Yeah, like, it's a lot. And so, self-care is definitely important. I do take a month off twice a year.
Hmm.
Um, all of my clients know that's one of my disclaimers when I do take on new clients. Like, and I've been doing that even before I started school, because I just need time to disconnect, to recharge, because I do so much. And I know I didn't always start off with taking 2 months off a year.
Right.
Sometimes it'd be like 2.5 weeks or 3 weeks. But I'll definitely do that, try to save my money just because I need to disconnect
Yes.
and connect even more uninterrupted with my greatest resource, which is God. And miraculously, I'm not rich by any means, but it's always has worked out. Opportunities has come up to allow me to make enough so I can do other things that will give me some true respite. And so I think it's all about your perspective and how you perceive these challenges that comes. Is this, oh my gosh, this is so hard, or oh, this is a growth moment where I am
Mhm.
going to become better and stronger. And so you tend to take a different approach when you have a certain perspective. And then my
Right.
biggest thing is when I'm thinking about everything I have going on, I make sure God is included in all of that because it literally makes the weight feel more balanced and easy. So those are the tools and habits and techniques that I use to sustain myself in all I have. Sometimes I don't even realize I'm a business owner or a student until people like, "Oh my gosh, how do you do it, girl?" La la la, and I'm like, "I do
Right.
that though. God is in the midst. He's so much bigger than all of those things. So
Wow.
it just makes it lighter."
Yes.
Hmm.
To hear you say that you don't stop to think about that you're a business owner, that's when it sounds like you're at a place where work doesn't feel like work.
Oh
People
no,
like to say that, like, I want to be doing something that doesn't feel like
it,
work. And
it does
when you
not. Now it has its moment.
yeah,
It
yeah,
has its moments. But no, and that's where my perspective come in. The moments that it does feel like work, it's like, oh no, I got to work on myself. That's a job. And so I got to work on becoming a better me. So that's a job too. But no, the work that I do with people, it just doesn't feel like work. And then when it does feel like work, it's usually something I got to work on. And then it becomes lighter as I
right,
work on that. So
absolutely.
yeah.
I love that. And also take a note, building an intentional space for you, even if, like you said, even if it starts off being a small duration of space and can
Mhm.
grow to something later, but recognizing early on you should build in space for you. Um, that's so important. I would imagine for entrepreneurs who are coming out of years of experience in their field, to get to a place where you feel confident to step out and start your own business. You probably are like subject matter expert. You probably have been kicking butt and taking names for a long time, but also meant you probably have a pretty high work ethic. And sometimes having a pretty high work ethic equates to you're giving probably a significant amount of time to the work or the job, and sometimes maybe even less to yourself. And as I said, you commonly hear people say, "Oh, being an entrepreneur requires you to work late at night and 80 hours a week." But if you can't build in that intentional space for yourself, how can you gain perspective, right? you,
Right.
you'll always be in work mode and go mode and miss what's really happening and miss being able to stop and evaluate your challenges. So I love
Exactly.
that. Oh, so many good nuggets and jewels. I am so thankful to have you here. I do want to ask one more question. I know I feel like we've been going in a nice little flow, but
Yeah.
prepared and sent you some questions. And one, I took a minute to just see what might be top of mind conversation, or like a just a common like discussion that's happening in your field. And one popped up regarding social media. So I'd love just your point of view in general. I think it would be valuable for listeners who are considering a therapy practice, just to hear perspective from someone who's more experienced. What's your general point of view on therapists maintaining a social media profile?
Ooh, so this is tough
Mm-mm.
because one, I am super old school from the South where we do things a little bit slower. So it took me a while to even get on social media. I literally was bedbound after having surgery, and a friend of mine was like, "You got time?" She opened up a Facebook account for me, and it allowed me to connect with people, especially being away from home and all of that stuff. Um, I guess the reason why I was like, "Ooh, social media and mental health," is for me. I look at it as oil and water because because the aspect of social media being so out and open,
Mhm.
and mental health therapy is so anonymous and intimate.
Yes.
And so when I look at it from that angle, yes, it's like a ooh, but it's needed. This is the world we live in.
Right.
And so, for those who want to use social media as a platform to, I guess, I would assume they would use it to advertise their business. I would say go in with intentionality. It took me a while. One, I don't have a social media platform. In fact, it took me I think I didn't even get my website open until like the end of 2022.
Right.
And by God's grace, we stay full. Stay having. I'm actually hiring new clinicians, a couple of new clinicians for the practice. So I've been blessed to not need to have a social media practice. Sorry, social
Right.
media presence
Right.
to get clients. It's just being when you just work in a field for as long as I've been, you just naturally build networks with hospitals, clinics, even these platforms. Somebody
Yeah.
told me they found me on YouTube, which I was like, what? They advertising me on YouTube? Okay. I guess somebody had a podcast and they talked about my practice.
Oh,
I
okay.
don't know.
Okay.
Again, God. So I get referrals from so many places going on social media, which I know where there's a lot of people who really, really need it. So I don't want to say don't do it.
Yeah.
I just didn't need to do it. But if you're gonna be out there, one of the things I say again, be intentional about everything you post. I'm a
Mhm.
very thorough person naturally. So if I post something, um, I want to if somebody questioned me about it, I want to have an answer as to why I did it. I'm
Yeah.
not just throwing stuff out there just because it's how I feel or whatever. But being very intentional. Another thing that I caution is people putting their op- well, there's a not it has to be anonymity, so we can't really say too much too. So
Right.
that's why I'm like
Right.
I just stay away from it. But one size doesn't fit all in therapy. There's some people that
Exactly.
believe that though.
Right.
I come from a psychodynamic perspective. My skills and tools are client responsive.
Right.
It's not You're not ever going to come into a therapy session with me and I have something planned unless we both talked about it first.
Right.
And that's the only caveat issue I have with social media presence and people in my field is they'll put these things, real good things out there, but what about the person who may have a different upbringing or a different cultural background or a different situation and it doesn't apply to them? So then
Right.
now they're going to internalize, oh, something must be wrong with me. I just can't be helped. But
Mhm.
again, that's me and my deep
Good.
thinking.
I love that. I've been having so I've got a 15-year-old daughter, which makes her what is that Gen Z, and so
Oh,
we
yeah.
we've been having conversations about what's happening with TikTok, and in my limited opinion, because I don't spend a lot of time on TikTok, but from what she tells me and from what I am gathering, it seems like millennials spend a lot of time on TikTok in terms of the content creators. And then I think about Miss Tabitha Brown, who people love to go in and grab her tidbits of good life advice, right? I'm doing air quotes for
Mhm.
folks, good life advice. And so I asked you that question because I tend to be I'm a Gen X, so I approach social media the same way. It
Mhm.
was a utility, it's a tool. It's I'm trying to break into and of course I use it for casual scrolling and entertainment. But it seems like millennials are using it as a content. They're content creators. This is a stream of revenue.
Mhm.
So I wanted to ask that question from again, getting that knowledge out there from someone that's more experienced that isn't a millennial to speak to those potential therapy owners or practice owners that may be of that generation where they're seeing um, social media. So I would think we were taught to use the online presence as a form of marketing because you first touched on like I don't necessarily need it for marketing, right?
Mhm.
I'm well connected. I've got a great referral network, and so the first use of online tools is typically for marketing and building up clients. And then secondly, now it seems to be build a brand and make a name for yourself and share your thoughts, be a subject matter expert. So it's no longer just a utility for getting clients and referrals for your business. It's something completely different, and you can generate income just from your brand. So I definitely appreciate that advice. If you want to add anything to it, again, thinking about if you're going to try to use it as a brand, right, and as a way of giving advice to people, as you said, it's important to just be very careful there, not giving something that not only isn't like sound, but also giving something that may direct somebody in a different way, because therapy should be very customized and tailored to people's needs. So
very customized. I get the business aspect, branding yourself. And again, I am a millennial, even though I identify,
okay.
but I identify with Gen X because I'm the youngest. And
Yeah,
so
you
when you're
sound like the way you answered, I'm like, oh, she sounds very Gen X, because that's how we use stuff.
when you have a big brother and big sister and they make you do what they do, I do identify as a Gen X.
Okay.
And so, yes, that's where that came from. And sometimes I feel like I am. But it's just, and you're so right. Like my generation, oh gosh, it's all, it's just the spirit behind it. It's the
Yeah.
complete opposite of what I look at therapy as, because
Yes.
it's not a one size fits all. It's a custom made, individualized. And I don't think I would ever do it, even though I've been told I should.
Mhm.
I would have so many disclaimers. It would just be crazy. So if you're going to do it, have disclaimers out there to say, hey, this is for the average. Everybody's different. Some
Oh,
may
yes.
work, some may not work. Because people who are wounded and hurting and are looking for these easy fixes through these networks that just comes easier for them and probably safer for them. There is a level of sensitivity when you're wounded, and it can be taken
Absolutely.
out of context and go in a whole different direction when that wasn't the intent. So
Absolutely. I love that. I love that. Yeah, I'm just being very cautious and mindful, so that you don't put your business at risk, even, in the future based on what you say. So yes, using social media responsibly is
yes.
definitely a great takeaway here. And I think a great note to end. So I would love to say, for individuals that want customized, individualized care, how can they reach out to you?
They can just go on the website, www.healinghms.org. You can look, explore, go to the Contact Us tab if you like what you see. And there's just a little quick 2-minute form or 1-minute form, depends on how fast you type, and reach out to us. You can go to the Teams tab. If you see any clinicians that you feel connected to, you can request a consultation. You can even request a consultation with me. I'm really responsive to emails. We have our phone. You can call. I'm very personable. So yes, website www.healing, H for hearts, M for minds, S for souls.org.
Awesome. Thank you so much, John. That was amazing. And I appreciate all the jewels and knowledge. I'm going to put a few tags in there and, of course, include the website in the description. Well, I am so glad our paths crossed. I am so thankful to be a part of the practice. And again, thank you so much for your time this morning. Greatly appreciate you supporting me.
No problem. I love what you're doing. This is such a blessing. I'm going to definitely send people, when they ask me questions about the practice, I could just tell them, listen to this.
How about that? Yay.
Yes.
Thank you. Awesome. Well, thank you so much again. You have a wonderful week.
Okay, you too. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.